So whether open access or premium access, you can navigate the climate web entirely on your own. And we've spent a lot of time making that really possible and organizing the information in ways that makes that easy. But we're happy to provide support if you would like it in terms of how to use it more effectively or any number of ways, which I'm going to describe very briefly in this video. So for example, we can create custom doorways for all kinds of purposes. I have a custom doorway for my university course on business climate change mitigation, where basically all of the information is organized that students need for their research in the course. And we can do that for your course. We can do customized briefings and webinars, and I'll give you one example of that in a slide coming up in just a minute. But for lots of different topics, we can deliver a customized briefing or webinar much more cost effectively than many people can, because we've already done so much work to organize the information in a way that we can then take advantage of in presenting a briefing or a webinar. Pre-mortems are a very interesting decision-making tool. For example, my company failed 5 years from now. What happened? That's called a pre-mortem. And it can be a very useful tool. It's a bit different from scenario planning, and we can help pull together the information from the climate web that can help with a pre-mortem analysis. Similarly, these topics are moving so fast that a lot of the assumptions that companies are using and the decision makers may have in the back of their heads are out of date. And so we can come in and help challenge your assumption or audit your assumption in ways that is not intended to change your mind about anything. It's simply intended from a due diligence perspective to help you make sure that you're basing your decisions and your assumptions on the best available information, which we've pulled together in the climate web. Same goes for rapid materiality assessment. We can also support all kinds of scenario planning, and you can actually use the climate web to do your own scenario planning around climate change. Not necessarily if you're a multinational company, but for many companies, you can use the climate web as your own do-it-yourself scenario planning tool. And through the premium access, there's actually an ebook specific to scenario planning, do-it-yourself, that you can take advantage of. We can also help you become positioned for deep uncertainty. The reality is that we don't know what's going to happen with any specificity year to year on climate change or climate policy. And therefore, there is a lot of uncertainty here. And how do you get positioned for it? And we've been working with companies on that kind of thing for 20 years. And so that is another way we can use the climate web to your benefit. Now, coming back to a customized briefing, this is a company that came to us that is actively involved in the investment space and in making recommendations on stocks and bonds and low carbon investments, et cetera. And they came to us with a whole series of questions, including, are carbon emissions, whether absolute or intensity-based, correlated with risk? Do lower emissions correlate with company financial performance? How did carbon footprinting get integrated into investing? How indicative of risk are Scope 1 and 2 emissions? What do we know about the accuracy of Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions? Their whole business model basically dealt with a lot of these questions, but they came to us to say, what is it that you can tell us that will help inform us further about these questions? And what we did was we basically went through the climate web and basically checked the entire literature relevant to each of the different questions they were posing, summarize the key lines of argument, and then point to the key ideas, the key graphics, the key reports, et cetera, in the climate web if they want to dig deeper. And again, with a URL to this whole collection of information, we provided the briefing in a few hours, but then they could access all of that information and material at their leisure to dig even deeper. And so that's an example of a pretty advanced briefing and access to the climate web, critical to this company's business model. So there are a number of ways that we can support Climate Web users. Contact us, info@climatographer.com, or contact information is available in the last video coming up very soon here. And we're happy to discuss how we can use the Climate Web to help you advance your climate change goals. That's why we built the Climate Web to begin with. That's why we've basically spent 25,000 hours of our time and money building the Climate Web over the last decade.